Hello, welcome back to another pen talk. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for spending some time with me as I explore my wide world of pens. And that world has gotten quite a bit larger recently. And this is one of the buys that I've been looking for a long time. You may recognize that symbol. They put tape all over the box, and they sent me an email saying that make certain that the tape is all intact, which it was. The package arrived safely, very well wrapped. So let's open this up. But I think we need to explore why this became a purchase of mine. I enjoy watching other videos, and I watched ODE's video about what pens he would love to have if he could afford them, and felt, to me it's not a question so much as afford. If you have some funds available, it's a question whether you buy one pen or a few pens, or if you have a budget that's set over a period of time. I have a fairly liberal budget, as probably you may recognize from my videos, but I haven't really pulled the trigger on a high-end pen in a while, especially a new one. I bought a number of used ones on eBay, but when ODE talked about Santini pens, when he discussed what they do, I said, a pen I would love to have. So here's their website, and they have just a few models of pens, but they come in a variety of materials. You have your colorful resins. What appealed to me was Ebonite, because Ebonite's not a material that's used a lot, especially in new pens. So that appealed to me. I really enjoyed their high end with the octagonal faceted cap and barrel. Here's some examples. The Michelangelo one certainly appealed to me, but at the end of the day, what really appealed to me was their nibs, and they really put a lot of effort into letting you know as a potential customer the nibs, the whole variety that they make, and they make a lot of them, and they make some special ones. They're all 18 karat gold. They're all made in-house, so that really appealed to me. So then it was a question of what pen vehicle do I want to have my nibs in, and so I settled on what I would call the mid-range model. So it's an Ebonite pen. It's not faceted. I think the color is great. Obviously, we'll see when we open up the box if that will be the case. But I spent a lot of time thinking about what I would like to do to add to my collection and also add to my writing experience, because it's not, to me, not only just having some piece of artwork or something that you find extremely great to look at, but it's also something that you enjoy writing with. And I watched a few reviews. There's not a lot on Santini pens, but I watched a few, and all of them were very consistent in talking about the writing experience. And I think I have some nibs here. I ordered an extra nib, so I have two nibs, and I think they will create a very unique writing experience, and hopefully you'll enjoy watching them as much as I enjoyed using them. So no further ado, we're going to open up this box. We'll show you how it was packed, and then we'll look at the pen. So the package, as you might expect, was very well wrapped. And when you finally get into the interior of it, this is the first thing you see, which I think is excellent. It's just a nice note. You get the feeling like you're joining part of a family. Filling instructions. A nice letter, which we're seeing for the first time. So now you see that somebody checked out the nib. And there's a writing sample. Really nice. And of course, as I said, I got two nibs, and here's the SuperFlexy one. So that's really nice. And then you get to the box, and you get a nice little coupon. Don't know how I'm going to be able to use this, but we'll see. And then this beautiful box with a bow on it. You know, I think when you spend a decent amount of money on a pen, it's really nice to feel that your purchase was well done and the maker appreciates your business, and I certainly feel that way. So after removing the beautiful blue ribbon bow, you find this nice box with a magnetic closure, nice embossing on there. Then when you open it up, you'll see more. There's the warranty card secure inside of the top of that box. You find a Made in Italy card. Limited edition. They certainly want you to know it's a limited edition. And the pen is again wrapped. Everything was really wrapped extremely well with care and definitely has that personal touch to it. And even more wrapping. As the excitement grows, trying to actually look at your pen. And the first thing you feel is it has some heft to it. And there's another, beautiful. We have our tag. And it just, it feels great in the hand. I went for something with some colors on it. You know, this is number 8 of 33. Yeah, it's nice. I haven't had a numbered pen for a while. The first impressions are extremely, extremely nice. Cap comes off in about 1 1/4 turns, and again, I really appreciate the fact that the section is done with the same material as the rest of the pen. It feels great in the hand, which is what I expected. This is not a pen I would post, but they designed it to post well, deeply, and securely. This is not a color combination I've ever had in Ebonite. And the other thing that's nice is it is a piston fill pen. Again, my first Ebonite piston filler. And then you turn the knob to activate it like you would expect. So that's great. So I'm going to appreciate this pen. And then we're going to find a suitable ink it up, and see how that SuperFlexy nib, which looks beautiful, writes. All Ebonite feeds that they use for their higher end models. Again, to provide the flow, which they discuss very well on their website. I really enjoyed the detail that they went through to explain the pens that they make and how they provide with you a very, very good product. And I think a good value. I think it's time to look closely at this pen. The polish is perfect. Gold trim is excellent. I like that black enamel rings that are in there into the cap band. And the cap band is recessed, which is a nice design. And this Ebonite is definitely unique. I don't have anything else that looks like this, and I do like the colors. I think this is a pen that the more you look at it and the more you use it, the more you'll appreciate the craftsmanship and the design. The piston filler works great. You turn it counterclockwise until it stops, put the nib in your bottle, and then turn it clockwise, and it takes a number of turns. And then when it comes all the way up, you'll hear a clicking sound that you know you're at the top of the piston. And I think that's an excellent design. It just feels great in the hand. There's a little engraving in the cap band, which is what you would expect. And we'll take a look at it again now that I have a little bit better view of that unique number. It's always nice to get a pen that's unique in that aspect, and there's only 33 of these, which again puts that in a limited edition. So I've chosen an ink for it. I've inked it up, and we're gonna write with a little bit and then come back and talk about my writing experiences. I now have some nice strong sunlight coming in, so we need to explore the interesting colors in this Ebonite with a different light. I was using LED lights and some diffuse sunlight, so now we're with direct sunlight. Hopefully you can appreciate what I would call a unique ebonite called Caribbean. It kind of has that interesting look, maybe with a hurricane there with that red spot. You can see how the grain is in that ebonite when you look at the top of the cap. That clip is just beautifully done. It's pretty stiff, but with that roller ball it should be easy to put over any type of fabric and work well to keep it in your pocket if that's what you so desire. And I like looking at things under sunlight. It's time to bring out the LED and play it on this very nice resin. It's just interesting how different types of light bring out different aspects of the item that you're photographing. Hopefully you appreciate it. If we look inside the cap, we'll see a nice brass insert there with a Phillips head screw there, nicely formed threads, a ledge there to seal up against the section, keeping that nib from drawing out. And that screw is used to hold in that clip, which is inserted into the cap. So it's a nice clean design, no real cap finial screwed on. I like that. Again, I like almost everything about this pen. Wow, there's nothing I don't like about this pen. How's that? So this is the ink I chose. It's part of the Crystal series. I'm not certain whether they're still made or not. I bought this a while ago. Here's the color card. It's a very intense purple in the blue family, and it does have a fair amount of, what's that word for it? Not shimmer, sheen. That's the word I'm looking for. It has a nice amount of sheen if you lay it down nice and thick, and I think this nib is going to do well with this ink. Ask, how does the sheen show up? Well, here you can see it on those threads on the lid of the bottle. There's a nice liner. Thankfully, you can unscrew it easily, and that little plastic ring is indicative of the color of the ink. A very nicely designed package for good ink. So here's my comparison with other pens. The Libra dwarfs the M800, which is not a small pen. Pilot Metropolitan and Lamy Safari. I mean, it is longer than any of these pens by quite a bit. It's also bigger in diameter than these pens. I don't have an M1000, but I think even the M1000 is smaller than the Libra. Let's uncap them and look at the nib. Uncapped, the Libra still dominates this group of pens. The two-tone nib on the M800, and this is an M800 from the late 80s. It has West Germany on it. Is definitely an attractive nib, but the Santini holds its own, and to me, I don't think the expense of making a two-tone nib, and you need to be run through 2 coatings and putting rhodium on a gold nib is, to me, not a good thing to do. Let's zoom in on the sections and nibs a little bit more closely. I think the Santini is also a winner here as far as how that section is done. It's just beautiful. Nice long section, good girth to it. The Pelicans just have a very short section. Yeah, the threads aren't that sharp, but it's still, I like the fact of a nice long section where you don't need to be concerned about where your fingers are or where you hold it. These two just don't compare from that perspective, but they're here to show you an example, because I'm certain most of you have at least written with that may not have a Lamy All-Star, Lamy Safari. They all have the same type of grip and nib to them. And a Pilot Metropolitan. You may not have the M800, and definitely probably don't have the Santini, but I'm just impressed with what they've done from a design viewpoint on this nib and section. And here we have a close-up to hopefully allow you to appreciate the nibs. They are nice, but I have to be honest, the Pelican certainly visually is very attractive. The Santini holds its own, and the other ones we don't need to mention. So even though we're not going to write with this extra nib in this video, it came in this really nice box, very well protected. And let's take a look at how that cursive italic is done. It looks good. That Ebonite feed, which they put in these pens, and it is soft. Those tines spread easily with a little bit of pressure. So this should be a very interesting nib when I finally want to try something different than the SuperFlexy. I don't think this screw-in insert's going to work in any other type of pen, but I'm certain that friction fit nib and feed might work, but that's not something I'm going to do right now. So now comes that time where I'll talk about the pen, and then we'll see how that SuperFlexy nib writes. So hopefully you've gathered from what I've talked about is this is an impressive pen on many, many levels. Number one, it's extremely good sized. So I, admired a lot of the Conway Stewarts, and they do tout their nibs, but I just wasn't motivated enough to pull the trigger. Pelicans intrigued me with a lot of their different finishes, but it's a Pelican nib, and I have a number of those. I have 3 M800s, and the nibs are okay, but they're not nibs that wow me. I'm not a Mont Blanc fan, so that's off the table, and for various reasons. I think they're extremely overpriced, and I think you're paying a lot for the name, and yes, they may have quality and mystique and resale value, but not a pen that gets me excited. I've had my Visconti adventures. I have no desire to repeat those. There's other pen manufacturers from Italy that are very intriguing, but I've written with a few of them at pen shows, and again, didn't excite me. So this has led me to the Santini in my hand, because this pen intrigued me on many levels. And the fact that they make their own nibs, and they make such a great variety of nibs, and they talk about making the nibs. Here's something from their website. That got me excited. So this is the pen that I got with a SuperFlexy nib, and some of the reviewers have talked about the fact that they would have liked to have tried the SuperFlexy. So if they watch this video, maybe they can comment on what they feel about the nib once they see it in action. This feels great in the hand. It is about as large a pen as I would want to put in my hand. That section is just great. I'm sorry I use that word a lot, but it is a great pen. And those threads are not sharp, and there's just a small step up, but again, it has a nice angle to it. It's rounded, so you can hold this pen anywhere. We'll give you the dimensions of the barrel so you can put that in perspective. And this would fit in anybody's hand, no matter how large their hand is. I'm not going to show it posted because this is not a pen I'm going to post on a regular basis, and it is 7 inches long, or 177 millimeters posted, which to me is too long. I think if you look at this pen, and again, if I had seen all the pens in person, this may have not have been my first choice, but I'm not, disappointed with it. And as I mentioned earlier, I think this is a color that's going to grow on me over time, and it certainly has a phenomenal feel to it. And it's very, very well done. Fit and finish and polish and all of those things just work great. Nice Ebonite feed. Well, time for ink on paper. So when I wrote this, I had the microphone right next to the nib. This nib is very unique in my experiences. It is very soft. I would not call it SuperFlexy. Maybe in relationship to their Flexi nib, this is more flexy, so therefore it becomes SuperFlexy. It is slightly sensitive to pressure and angle. You can see it started up right away, and it's been sitting in my hand for a couple minutes. You definitely feel the nib on paper. So there's a standard amount of feedback. It's not unpleasant. I like it. And on this Fabriano paper, it has some texture to it. It's not super smooth like Tomo River or Clairefontaine or Rhodia, and I like it because of that, because I like feeling the nib on paper. And sometimes it's not going to start up right away because it requires an exact amount of pressure at the right angle, but it rewards you with a very wet line, and you can push it and it will railroad. I went a little bit too fast there. So is this vintage flex? I would say that based on my vintage experience in my hand, this is a flex nib in the vintage style, but not certainly what one would call the wet noodle, which is a bad expression, but it's one that everybody uses. I mean, I could write with this nib forever. As you can see, again, it is sensitive. And when I bought this pen, I was advised that, is this sure the nib you want, blah, 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 blah. And I said, yes, I'm used to vintage flex. And I certainly wouldn't get any other nib because I have a number of standard nibs. So there it goes. I mean, once it starts writing, it does an excellent job. So let me rate this pen. Hold on. I'm going to give it a 10.0. It gets 3 checks for the nib, even though we're getting a little bit of skipping. But again, it's the nature of the nib. It gets 3 checks for build, design, construction, and ergonomics. It's just right there. And this is probably their most challenging nib to write with, and I'm certain over time I'm going to be very, very comfortable with using this pen. And this may not be the perfect ink for this pen, so obviously once I empty it out, and there's a fair amount in there, I'll try another ink. And that may explain some of those differences, because pens like this are very sensitive to the ink that you put in them. So that's one of the things people think, maybe you get an expensive pen and everything's perfect. No. It's like, jumping into, a Formula One race car and trying to drive it like you would normally drive a car, and you're probably going to hate the experience. But it's designed for a specific function. It's designed for an experienced driver. This pen is designed for an experienced writer. Someone who understands the nuances of the nib, can coax out the nib and get it to do what you want. I'll go back to the letter. Here's the writing in the letter. And they were able to get some nice line variation in there. They don't have any railroading. So I'm certain the ink in the experienced hand was able to produce that. And this pen will eventually reach that level with me, but it's not going to happen overnight. But I'm going to put in the time and the effort to do that. Yes, this is a unique pen. It certainly fulfilled and checked all the boxes and met and exceeded all my expectations for the pen. We've come to the conclusion of this video. Hopefully you found it interesting and entertaining. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate your watching. Like the video if you'd like it. Comment if you'd like to have a response from me, or just share your thoughts with the rest of the viewers. It's always nice. Find a pen you love to put ink on paper with and go to town. Hope all of you are safe, healthy, and happy, enjoying your pens and your inks, enjoying each day to its fullest. We reach the end of this video. You can see how it writes fine as long as you handle the pen properly. This is bye. Until the next video. Nice, nice, nice.